Shabbat Shalom. When I was growing up, my bedroom wall was covered with pictures of my heroes. Every night I would go to sleep with some of the world's greatest athletes, musicians, and actors surrounding me, singing me a lullaby of hope and reassurance that success, celebrity, and fame are never beyond reach. That with hard work, dedication, and mental fortitude, no goal is impossible. I can still remember that wall with almost photographic precision. The MLB and NBA pennants surrounding the upper corners, a signed Chris Carter framed trading card next to my bed, and a beat-up poster of the U.S. Olympic Dream Team fastened with thumbtacks to the wall right near my pillow. I also remember that for some reason I put a Mr. Yuck poison control sticker over the head of Charles Barkley on that same poster. I have no idea why. I evidently had a serious beef with Charles Barkley when I was growing up, but I think it shows pretty impressive insight for a young boy. My wall, like the walls of kids all around the world, was covered with dreams. And like many kids who have grown up, who have experienced life in all of its complexity, its confusion, its fragility, and its disappointments, my dreams have, over the years, blurred and faded away. I no longer believe that I have a reasonable chance of becoming a wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings if I work on my lower body strength a little bit. And I have no delusions that Saturday Night Live is looking for a rabbi to write skits about the weekly parashah or lesser-known Talmudic folktales. The dreams of my childhood came down with the thumbtacks and double-sided tape that held them against that chipped white paint for all of those magical years, when my imagination took me anywhere and everywhere, where the world was safe, limitless, and waiting patiently for me to experience everything that she could offer. And for a considerable amount of time, probably much longer than I should admit, I grieved the loss of those dreams. It hurt to realize, and if I'm being honest, it still hurts to realize, that I have limits. To understand that I can't be everything, do everything, or know everything. To come to terms with the fact that I am flawed, that I have faults and shortcomings. To recognize, and this was the hardest thing to recognize, and it still is the hardest thing to recognize, that not everyone likes me. I know that seems pretty shocking to everyone out there, but yes, there are some people out there who don't find me so cute or endearing. It seems somewhat unfair, somewhat cruel that the magic of our dreams fades with the growing awareness of ourselves. That the more insight into ourselves we have, the more cognizant we are of our imperfections, of our quirks, of our idiosyncrasies. But there's also something very edifying about that understanding of dreams and self-awareness, namely because it makes us see the world through the context of our relationships, rather than through a worldview that not only focuses on the I, but seems to conveniently ignore the we. In Judaism, as some of our guest lecturers and teachers this year have pointed out so beautifully, the fame and the glory of the individual is never the goal. God does not promise to make Abraham a king. God does not promise to make Moses a despot. No, the promise to Abraham is a sky filled with the stars of children and generations to come. The promise to Moses is the uniting of an enslaved and dejected nation. The heroes on our tradition's bedroom wall are not superhuman. They are flawed men and women who care deeply for their people and who dream in the plural. And so the Torah forces us to ask a very difficult question. How do we dream? How do we fill the heavens with holiness? How do we sustain our people when we are so terribly flawed? When we are petty, when we are jealous, when we are angry, when we are too scared to carry on, when our dreams have faded because the belief in our own magic is gone. And our parashah responds with almost comical simplicity, providing us with two different sentences emphasized by Rabbi Akiva in the Talmud, the first one being, "Be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy," and the second one, "You shall love your fellow as you love yourself. These are two very simple sentences, and yet they couldn't be more complex and more complicated. But the Hasidim of Eastern Europe saw these two sentences and realized that there's a secret to them, that they can't exist by themselves. That first commandment, be holy for I, the Lord your God, am holy, is something that we take for granted. That we should be encouraged to be holy every single day and in every single moment of our lives, but that we by ourselves, by the fact that we are born, by the fact that we are Jews, by the fact that we get to exist every day, that is the blessing, that is holiness, that we are created b'tselem Elokim, that we are created in the image of God. Just to be is holy. And the second complication, the second secret that comes from those two lines is the idea that you should love your fellow as yourself. And the Hasidim knew that this is a very complicated idea because exactly what I was talking about earlier, those flaws, those imperfections, the more we know about ourselves, for many of us, we don't have a lot of love for ourselves. How do you love your fellow as you love yourself if the love that you show yourself isn't all that great? So the Hasidim took that message and they turned it around and they said it's difficult to love yourself when you know how small you are, how painful life can be, how you can't meet certain challenges, the fact that we're imperfect. So they changed that. They changed that sentence, that commandment, not to love your fellow as you love yourself, but love yourself as you love your fellow. Because that's incredibly hard. It is. It's incredibly difficult, but at the same time, the Hasidim and our rabbis understood that the dreams of our ancestors are far greater than the dreams of our individual selves. That ideas of individual and singular grandeur pale in comparison to that promise of the stars in the sky, of generation after generation, of a dream in the plural, a dream of the common good for us, for our people, for tikkun olam, for repairing a broken and defeated world. You should be holy because you are holy. And you should love yourself just as you love the people that surround you. On this message of holiness in the Shabbat, my blessing for all of us is that we learn to cover our rooms, the walls of our rooms, not canvas them with the individual merits of individuals who have achieved singular success, because that's not something that we have to look up to. It's not something we have to aspire to. You don't have to see someone else to realize that you're great. That we as Jews would be less as a people if you weren't with us. That individually, you are one of the stars that was promised to Abraham. And that the responsibility, the idea of living our lives with holiness, is a responsibility of taking the ownership of that star and living our lives to show how bright it can be and to make all the other stars that are around us even brighter. On the Shabbat of holiness, on the Shabbat of love, let's take a little bit of time to be a little kinder to ourselves, to understand that it's easy to love someone else, and it can be painful and difficult to love ourselves. But to know that every single one of us is capable of that love, that we each represent one of those promises, that every single one of us is a star on the wall of the bedroom of our collective dream. And may we take that idea into Shabbat and into the week ahead. May your Shabbat be blessed. May it be one of peace and rest. And may it be one of shining and beautiful light. Shabbat Shalom.